let's go over your warm-up. It starts our geometry unit. This is just a review of the types of angles. You should have learned these in the past, but let's take a look. This is an acute angle. What makes an acute angle acute? What's the definition of an acute angle, Alexis? Less than 90 degrees. And 90 degrees does what? It makes a straight corner. It's a right angle. So acute means it is smaller than a right angle. Obtuse is more than 90 degrees. It's okay. A right angle, and normally a right angle, you don't see this. You see a square right there. I don't really like what they put in there. They were just showing you where you measure, and that's what these little marks right here mean. That's what you're measuring. You may not have seen this angle before, a reflex angle. It looks like an acute angle, right? But we're not measuring the inside, we're measuring this outside. That's what that means right there. So a reflex angle is greater than 180 degrees. And a straight angle is a straight line. It is exactly 80 degrees. Okay? And you all know that these angles come from, a circle is how many degrees? 360 degrees. 360 degrees around a circle, right? That says 360. So if I were to break this like this, I have 4 90-degree angles, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 90 times 4 is what? 360 degrees. So when we're talking about a straight angle, we're talking about this center line right here, or measuring from here all the way over to there. And half of 360 is 180. That's where this comes from. It's 2 right angles put together. 90 plus 90 is 180. So this straight angle is going to be important to us this year as well. They'll actually all be important to us, except for maybe we're not really going to talk about a reflex angle. You just needed to know what it is. Okay, name each angle as acute, obtuse, right, reflex, or straight. Seems to be having a hard time focusing today. Much like, do what? Yeah, it's not. Yes, it got tired from the 3-day weekend. Let's see. Seems a little better. Understand what the problem is. It doesn't maybe like the colored paper. Okay, so what type of angle is this first? It seems to get blurry, and then is it my eyes? It's blurry. Okay. All right, that first angle. Raise your hand if you can tell me what that first angle is. Summer? Obtuse. Now, make sure when the word is written somewhere on your paper, you spell it correctly. This next angle right here, what would that one be? Raise your hand. Anna? Acute. It's a cute little angle. All right. This third one, Alexis, obtuse. Going to the next row. What's this first one right here? Autumn. Acute. This next angle right here. Ollie. Obtuse. This one right here, finishing out this row, EJ. It's reflex, right? Greater than 180 degrees. It's almost a full circle. Reflex. Going to the next row. This first one in the last row, Dominic. Reflex. say this middle one on this row, Autumn, straight, or 180 degrees. And this last one, Summer, right. And again, I'm going to fix this to put my little square right there, because that's how you'll see it. All right, questions on that? Just a good little review. Okay, put that to the side. We're going to glue everything in our journal at the end all at the same time. So just put that to the side. We're going to go to this green paper right here. And I just want to cut off this little edge right here on mine. You don't have to, but I don't like that it's not very symmetrical on both sides. All right, so these are some angle relationships. This is getting into the heart of what it is we need to know. And it should mostly be new material to you. And this is where we're going to use some algebra to help us in geometry. But these are words and definitions that you need to know. That means you need to study them. That means you need to take your journal home, or I'll give you, probably on Thursday, I'll give you a vocabulary sheet, and then we'll maybe do some Quizlet Live after we study it a little bit. But these are words that you need to know. If I just say it's a vertical angle, or they're vertical angles, you need to know what that means. So this takes studying. Studying means that you look at the paper, you read the word, you read the definition, you flip it over, you maybe write what it means, something that you are intentionally doing to learn the words. Okay, so let's start with, let's just start here, right here, with adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that are next to each other and share a common side. Right here, next to, is the key to adjacent angles, that next to. And so we're going to draw what adjacent angles would look like. And to do that, I'm going to start with kind of an obtuse angle. Remember, an angle is two rays that are put together at a vertex. This is a vertex where they meet. Those are two rays. And I'm just going to take it and draw a third ray to split it. Doesn't really matter the sizes. These are adjacent angles. This would be angle 1, and this would be angle 2. Adjacent angles are next to each other, and they share a common side. This ray would be their common side. Everybody okay with adjacent angles? Okay. Let's go to vertical angles. They are two angles across from each other. On intersecting lines, they are always congruent. And I think I talked about congruent the other day when we were talking about scale and similar figures. I said similar figures are same shape, different size. Congruent means same shape and size. So we're going to write that over here. Congruent Congruent means same shape and size. And I underlined size. That is going to be what's important to us as we do our math in this unit. That congruent means same shape and size. So we're going to draw a pair of vertical angles, and they just need to be drawn with intersecting lines. So I'm just going to start mine by making something that looks like an X. Those are intersecting lines. You need to draw arrows on the end of all of them because that means the line keeps going. They're not line segments. So here would be angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4. So there's 4 different angles. Can someone name a pair of angles that would be vertical angles? Read the definition again and tell me 2 of them that would be vertical angles. Vertical angles are across from each other on intersecting lines. They are always congruent. Anybody see a pair of vertical angles? Autumn? So what angle might be vertical or across from 2? So if we look right across, we would say 4. 2 and 4 are vertical angles. What's another pair of vertical angles? Anyone see another pair of vertical angles other than 2 and 4? 1 and 3. 1 and 3 are vertical angles. So we've got 2 pairs here. So I'm going to write that over here. The way you write that is you would say angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical. And if they're vertical, that also means they are congruent. Congruent means same shape and same size. Those 1 and 3 are exactly the same. They are a mirror image of each other. So 1 and 3 are vertical and congruent. Angle 1 and 3 are vertical and congruent. And you need to make sure that you have that little angle mark at the front. So we're also going to say that angle 2 and angle 4 are vertical. And what's the other word? Congruent. And what does congruent mean? Same shape and same size. And so that's going to help us do some math with some angles. So looking at this same picture, can anyone tell me a pair of adjacent angles? Looking at this same picture, I need a pair of adjacent angles. Alexis? 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are adjacent. Someone tell me another pair of adjacent angles. Which ones? 1 and 2 are adjacent. There's another set. Autumn? 1 and 4. And one more? 2 and 3, right? Next door neighbors that share a common side. Okay? All right. Moving on. Let's go down here to complementary angles. Everybody say that. Complementary. Complementary angles. Any 2 angles whose sum is 90 degrees. And what does sum mean? Add. So there are any 2 angles that when we add up the measure of their angles, they equal 90 degrees. So we're going to draw that, and of course we're going to start that with a 90-degree angle. That means you need to have a straight corner. So we're going to draw complementary angles. To do that, we have to start with a 90-degree angle because they add up to 90 degrees, and then we just split it. And you would have angle 1 and angle 2. So if angle 1 was 45 degrees and angle 2 is 45 degrees, if we added those up, what will we get? 90 degrees. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. Okay, moving on to supplementary angles. Everyone say supplementary. Okay. Any two angles whose sum, that means when we add it up, we add up the measure of the two angles, we are going to get 180 degrees. And 180 degrees, what does that angle look like? A 180 degree angle? A straight line. So of course we're going to start that one with something that looks like a straight line, because when we add them up, we're going to get a straight line. It's not perfectly straight. It's all right. Okay. And then just take another angle and split it somehow. And I'm going to call this one angle 1 and this one angle 2. And so I can tell that is greater than a 90 degree angle, angle 1. So I'm just going to roughly estimate that one at 120 degrees. So angle 2 would have to be 60 degrees, because together, when I add up, what should I get? 180 degrees. That's going to help us do math. The last term that you need to know is a linear pair. Okay, so if I look at the word linear pair, what do you notice about? You've got line. There are two angles that make a straight line. Two angles that are adjacent. Right here, these two are adjacent. They are supplementary because they add up to 180 and they make a straight line. So supplementary angles are also a linear pair. And linear pair are also supplementary. These two words go together. Those are arrows. So I can just draw another picture that looks like this. So I can start here with a straight line. That one is more straight than the last one. This time, instead of drawing it this way, I could actually draw it this way. And I would still have angle 1 and angle 2. And so the key is that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 have to equal what? 180 degrees. So one of the things that can help us remember the difference between complementary and supplementary is this little purple sheet. You've got this little purple sheet right here. So this little hint, the S in supplementary can, if I add this little line right here, supplementary becomes an 8. So the S in supplementary, if I do this right here, it's 180. And the C in complementary, if I add this little dotted line right here, it becomes a 9 for 90 degrees. So this little purple sheet is just showing us a little hint to remember that the S in supplementary can be changed to an 8 for 180 degrees. This C in complementary, if I bring a line straight down, that makes a 9 for 90 degrees. Some people just have a hard time remembering the difference from the words. When we go to put that in our journal, we'll just put those on the same page. Okay, let's move that to the side. And we are going to go to this white paper right here. We're going to do some math with this. Okay. Go ahead and cut it out on the outside dotted lines as one big piece. This should not take longer than about 45 seconds. Just one piece. Alright, so if it looks like this, you can take this top part, fold it over. And if you like, you can cut your flaps apart. You do not have to do that. Alright, everybody ready to go on? So let's look at this first one here on the left. This is an example of complementary angles. Complementary angles, again, add up to what? Nope. 90 degrees. 90 degrees. I can tell because there is this little square here in the corner. That means the measure of those two has to be 90 degrees. So, to show that, angle 1 is 65 degrees plus 25 degrees. Do your math. 5 plus 5 is 10, so 0 carrier 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 90 degrees. So we would say that angle, you look at that as WXY. WXY is complementary to angle YXZ. That's the way you look at those. So, the definition is two angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. So here's another example. These two angles are complementary. So if I needed to know what the measure of the other angle is, I write a one-step equation. 30 degrees plus x equals 90 degrees. So 30 plus this one, and I know they're complementary because I see the little square in the corner. Subtract 30 from both sides. Angle X has to be 60 degrees. That's the math we're going to do. We're going to fall back on the algebra we know. Everybody okay with that? We ready? Okay. The next one, supplementary angles. I can tell these are supplementary because they form a straight line. So 120 degrees plus 60 degrees is 180 degrees. 60 plus 120 is 180. So angle HIJ is supplementary. Supplementary to angle JIK. The vertex is always your middle letter. So that's two angles whose measure have a sum of 180 degrees. So another example is down here. These two are supplementary. They're showing us because if we subtract, we get 45. We're going to solve that as a one-step equation. Angle X plus 135 has to equal 180. So if I add these two up, they have to equal 180 because they're supplementary. Subtract 135 from both sides. That says angle X has to equal 45 degrees. We are going to do one-step equations with these. If I add these two up, X plus 135, they have to equal 180. Subtract 135 from both sides. That leaves us with the measure of angle X has to equal 45 degrees. Okay, everybody all right? Let's go on. Adjacent angles. Adjacent angles. What are adjacent angles? Side by side. Side by side. They share a common wall. So here we're going to look at angle DCA and this one. We'll call these two adjacent angles. They are side by side. Angle ACB and angle ACD. They tell us right here. ACB and ACD are adjacent. They are next door neighbors. They are two angles that are side by side. They have a common vertex, that's a point in the middle, and a common side. So these two have a common vertex right there, and the common side is right here. They may or may not be congruent. So in our example here, are these two congruent up here? Are these congruent, these two? No. How do I know? They're what? Yes, this one's 105 degrees. This one is 75 degrees. So they're not the same shape or the same size. They are not congruent, but they are side by side. But adjacent angles do not have to be congruent. That is not a requirement for them to be adjacent. Adjacent just means a next door neighbor, an elbow partner. All right, let's look at the next one. These are going to be vertical angles directly across from each other, vertically. So this says angle LMN. So start with your highlighter on L, go to the vertex at M, and then go up to N. We're talking about this angle right here. LMN. If you put your highlighter at L, go to M, go to N, and then highlight the area in the middle. We're saying that is vertical with OMP. So put your highlighter at O, go from O to M to P. That means this area right here. These are vertical angles. And then they're saying these other two are vertical from each other as well. So let me pick a different color. Let's pick orange. LMO. LMO. This orange highlighter's not the best. It's kind of ugly. And angle NMP. That's this section right here. These two are vertical from each other. What do you notice about them? Well, these two both measure 40 degrees, and these both measure 140 degrees. So they are vertical. So they are two angles formed by two intersecting lines. They are always congruent. And they have the same angle measure. So I can use the math down here. These angles are vertical. So angle X, what's the measure of angle X? Well, I know these two are vertical. So if this is 115, angle X has to be 115 degrees. And if this angle is 65 degrees, what does this one have to be? 65 degrees. So angles that are directly across from each other have this same measure. What's interesting about X and Y? I can still do some more math even though they haven't asked me. X and Y are adjacent angles, and when I add them up, what should they add up to? See how they make a straight line? So X and Y together, if I did the math, they would add up to 180 degrees. These are all related to each other. Okay, let's look at this last sheet. We're just going to get started on it, but I don't think we'll finish. Maybe, but I doubt it. Okay, so this last sheet is just looking at complementary and supplementary angles and the relationship between them. So up here are some examples of complementary angles, and remember, complementary angles have to add up to 90 degrees. So if this angle is 45 degrees, another angle, we need to know the measure of the other angle. So I can say minus 45, minus 45. That would make the measure of angle X equals 45 degrees. 90 minus 45 is 45 degrees. So angle X plus the other angle is 32. Together they have to equal 90. Subtract 32 from both sides. That leaves me with the measure of angle X has to equal, make that an 8. 8, 5, 58 degrees. This last one. So if one angle's 80 and together they equal 90, what's the other angle have to be? 10 degrees. Everybody understand the math there? Okay. Supplementary angles, two angles that add up to 180. So angle X plus 75, the other angle has to equal 180. Subtract 75 from both sides. Angle X has to equal 105. 180 minus 75 is 105. I need to remember not to use this pink paper. It's hard to see, isn't it? Okay, angle X plus 50 degrees for the other angle equals 180. Subtract 50 from both sides. What does that leave angle X? 130 degrees. 180 minus 50 is 130 degrees. Angle X plus 45. So subtract 45 from both sides. X, I'm going to have to do some borrowing here. 7, 5, 135 degrees. So 135 degrees. Bottom, determine whether angle A and B are complementary or supplementary. We're just going to write a C or an S. So 50 plus 40 is 90. and 90-degree angles, when they add up to 90 degree, are complementary. 35 plus 145, that is supplementary. 20 plus 70, that equals 90, so they're complementary. 65 plus 115, supplementary. 80 plus 100, supplementary. 75 plus 15, complementary. 60 plus 120, supplementary. 65 plus 25, complementary. Okay? All right. We're going to put these in our journal and do our table of content, and then we are done for today. All right. So we're going to start a new unit, Unit 4. So I'm just going to flip the page and just start Unit 4 at the top of my third page here. I'm going to leave a section at the beginning for vocabulary. We'll go back and put page numbers in just a minute. So we'll leave vocabulary section at the front. The next few pages are going to be called angle relationships. And today is 1/21. And I need to go do some numbering so we can put those in. Okay, so let's see. We finished off with interest on 70 and 71. So we'll leave 72 and 73 for vocabulary. And so we'll do 74 through, I don't know. We'll just have to start doing some gluing. So 74, 75, 76, 77, 78. Go ahead and number through 79. Number your pages through 79. Remember, we're skipping 72 and 73 for vocabulary. And I'm going to start like this. So our warm up on angles, and then vertical, and we'll start like this with our first section. Put our little hint reminder down there at the bottom. I'm going to put this one on 77. And then complementary and supplementary on 79. That leaves 2 pages open for some journal entry questions. So it looks like this again. Our warm-up, green and purple, the plain white paper, and then complimentary and supplementary. And go back and we'll put 74 through 79. If you need help, raise your hand.